Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to shade in all of these mediums, I think you call them. Yeah, mediums. So I'm going to show you guys how to shade in pencil, color pencil, crayon, and watercolors and acrylic paint. So without any further ado, let's get on with it. We're going to be shading with pencil. You don't have to have like a big pencil set to shade in pencils, but you could if you want to, obviously. So I really recommend you guys to actually try this along with me because it will really help like practicing. So yeah. Another thing I would tell you to do is not to use mechanical pencils because they're not that great for shading, but you could use like the normal HB pencils that you have in school. That would work. There's a lot of ways on how to shade with pencils, but I'm going to be sharing with you guys one way I do it. So first, what you basically want to do is shade the whole place you want to shade with the light shade of pencil. Keep in mind that this is a practice paper, so if you're going to do this in a real drawing, you might have to adjust to like the features of the drawing you're doing, because it's not always going to be a box you're shading in. So the next thing you're going to be doing is shading a bit harder on the top. Like you could use another pencil, like a darker pencil, but if you don't have a huge variety of pencils, then you can just like press a tad bit harder on your actual pencil to get that darker shading effect. And another note to take is that you don't always have to shade from like the darkest on the top and the lightest at the bottom. You could do it either way, or like there's different types of ways you could shade, so yeah. And another really important note I forgot to mention is that there's different types of values. So there's a light scale and a dark scale. So when you're switching between values, you kind of have to blend it to get a smoother shading effect. And as you can see here, I am using a kneaded eraser to lighten up the values at the bottom because I really couldn't see a difference or contrast in the values of the dark and the light. And you really need that contrast to make your shadings look really good. So right now I'm working on making the shading really smooth, and also you could use charcoal to make it really dark at the top or at the bottom, wherever you want to darken it. But I'm not going to show you how to use that because I'm going to be only using pencils for this shading. If you don't like this grainy texture on your shading, you can use this thing called a stump to like smooth it out. But if you don't have that, you could use your finger and that works just as well. So yeah. I'm working on the shading right now, but with the power of editing, I'm going to show you guys how it looks like when it's finished. This is how it looks like when I'm finished. I'm not the best at pencil shading, so excuse it if it's not that good, but I personally think it looks pretty good to me. The really important thing to keep in mind is to practice. Practice makes everything perfect. I am not that good at pencil shading, but I'm going to try and practice to make it really good. So now we're doing color pencils, but before we do it, there's something really important to talk about right now. So there's two basic types of color groups, the warm tones and the cool tones. And of course, there's also the primary colors, the secondary colors, and the tertiary colors. The warm tones are basically like warm colors like red, orange, yellow. And the cool tones are basically colors like blue, purple, indigo. And I think green is a cool tone. Let me just search that up and tell you guys. So I searched it up, and green is actually a cool tone, or cool color, however you want to call it. There's also the primary colors, which consist of red, blue, and yellow. And there's also the secondary colors, which consist of the colors you mix, two primary colors you mix to create the secondary color, which includes orange, purple, and green. And the tertiary colors, but we won't get into much detail about them. The reason why I'm telling you guys this is because you need to know what colors go well together to make a good kind of shading effect thing. Yeah. So I'm deciding to make my shading full of cool tones. So I'm going to start with some light green. You could use the same technique I use with pencils, just like color the whole circle or square or whatever with the light colors and then layer them on top with dark colors. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use a different technique. So I'm just going to color what kind of color I want in the place I want it to be, and then bring out my second color and like blend it in with the first color. This technique is a bit hard, but if you really want to set yourself on a challenge, then I would recommend you to do this technique. Now I'm bringing out my darker green and shading that in with the sea green. One of the tips is to like blend it as best as you can. Don't worry about the outcome or how it's going to look at the end. Well, because you can always switch it up if you don't like it. I finished shading that dark green in, and now I'm gonna shade with dark blue. I don't know why I decided to go with dark blue. I'm not really sure, but that's what we're gonna do. And if you think your color is a bit lighter than how you expected it to be, just put a bit more pressure, or if you have another color which is darker than that color, you could use it. Right now I'm just doing the finishing touches, and now it's done. We are on the crayon part now. Now for the crayon part, it's actually pretty similar to the pencil and color pencils, so I don't really need to say anything, but just the thing is that crayons are a bit like, I don't know, their texture is a bit different from pencils or color pencils, so you just have to look out for that. Other than that, it's actually pretty easy to shade with crayons. Since I use cool colors for the color pencil part, I'm going to use warm colors for the crayon part. So there's not really much to talk about on how to shade with crayons, so I'm just going to speed up this footage really fast. Like I said before, if you want to aim for that perfection, then you must practice every day. And even if you're really good at something, you should still practice to get even better. Now we're moving on with watercolors. Watercolors has a really different technique from pencil, color pencil, and crayon. But that's because you use a brush and paint. And that's the same with acrylic paint too. But watercolors is like, you kind of have to mix it in with the water too. Since I did cool tones for color pencils and warm tones for crayons, then now I'm going to do rainbow, because why not? And choosing to do a rainbow shading gradient thing on a tiny space of paper, it was not the best choice. Well, anyways, so first you just start off with your first color that you're going to be shading with. So for me it was red, and then after that I shade it, blend it in with orange, and whatever color you're using. Like, try to blend it in with the other color using water. You gotta get to know your brush, you know, to get the perfect gradient. You know what, never mind. And try to blend your color perfectly with the other color you're trying to blend. And one thing to do is, if you are painting on a really tiny piece of paper, don't put a lot of colors on it. Like, I learned that lesson in this video. And if you a lot of colors would be good for a big piece of paper, but for a tiny one, they all just get muddy, so I do not really recommend doing that. But you can do like a few colors, like 2 to 3, or any colors if you want to do it on a smaller piece of paper. But for a normal size paper, any kind of colors are fine. If you think your watercolors are too light, put less water into your paint for the paint to become more vibrant. And watercolors look really vibrant when you put on paper, but like after they dry, they get a bit like lighter. Right now I'm just darkening the color up. And as you can see here, the watercolors didn't blend correctly, but that's okay. I learned from my mistake. But if you like that texture in the watercolor, you can definitely keep it. I personally prefer a more blendy look, kinda. Is blendy even a word? Probably not. What I meant was probably blended look. Wait, that doesn't make any sense either. And I'm gonna be trying to fix this painting up, and I'll see you guys after I'm done. So this is how the painting looks like after I was finished. I know, it doesn't look that great, but I'm telling you, if you do the same painting on a larger piece of paper, it would be much more better, because the size of the paper and the amount of colors you're putting on one paper matters when you're doing a painting, or even a color pencil, or like a crayon drawing. Anyways, let's move on to the acrylic paint part. Now we're moving on how to shade with acrylic paint. So I was thinking of making like pastel colors on one page, since we did like cool tones and warm tones and rainbow. So why not do pastel for the acrylic page? Right now I have pink paint, which I mixed with red, which is a warm tone, with white. And I'm gonna do a gradient where it's pastel pink, white, then pastel blue, white, and then pastel purple. So I think that's gonna be an interesting combination because there might be a white bar that separates the gradients from each other, but I guess it's fine. So what you do is take your color and then gently mix it with the other color you're trying to shade it with. And if you don't think the shading is just right, then try and like blend it more, and don't mix the first color entirely with the second color or the second color entirely with the first color, because that won't be a gradient. As you can see here with the paint, I'm going out of the lines, and if you want a border whenever you're like using any acrylic paint or paint in general, I recommend you to keep masking tape if you have it on the sides. If you don't have masking tape, I guess you can use regular tape, but you have to be really careful. Also, when you take the masking tape off, it's so satisfying. Oh, sometimes, because other times whenever I take off the masking tape, it just rips off the paint and paper, and that doesn't look that good. One thing to know about acrylic paint is that it dries really fast, and if you don't have enough time to blend it with the other color, what you do is just layer the color you want to blend again and then blend it with the color you want to blend, if that makes sense. In other words, if I didn't have enough time to blend the blue paint with the white paint, I would just put more blue paint on the blue side and then blend it in with the white paint. Okay, so I finished painting the thing off camera. And I'm gonna take the masking tape off the paint. And if you actually use masking tape, the best time to take it off is when the paint is dry. So yeah. Now I'm gonna be skipping to the footage where the painting is finally finished after I took the masking tape off. This is how the painting turned out after I took the masking tape off. I think it looks pretty good, but for the white bars in the middle. So if you don't really like that separation that the gradient's giving in the acrylic paint, you don't have to do that. I just really felt like doing that today. So you can do the same thing. Like, you do whatever you feel that day. And that is it for today's video. I really hope it was really helpful, and I also hope that you enjoyed it. So I showed some techniques of shading in this video. Obviously I can't put all the techniques I know in one video. That would be a really long video. So I tried to share some of the simplest ones I know. Finally, make sure you subscribe to my channel and make sure you have your notifications turned on so you know whenever I post a new video. And yeah, be amazing and stay safe, guys. Bye!